Across the globe, mighty aircraft carriers patrol the ocean, symbols of immense naval power. The US has 11, China has 3 and is building more, the UK has 2, and then there's Russia, with just 1, the Admiral Kuznetsov. But you've probably only seen pictures of it belching black smoke, a floating symbol of trouble. Why does a global power like Russia have only a single, notoriously unreliable aircraft carrier? Is it a strategic choice, or a sign of deeper problems? Let's uncover the fascinating story behind Russia's lone carrier. To understand the Kuznetsov, we have to go back to the Soviet Union. You see, the Soviets never really built aircraft carriers in the American sense. They built heavy aviation cruisers. This wasn't just a name game. It reflected a totally different naval philosophy. The Soviet Navy was designed primarily for defense, to protect its vast coastlines and submarine fleets. It wasn't built for global power projection like the US Navy, which needed to operate far from its own shores. This focus on defense meant their fleets were often isolated in the Baltic, Black, and Pacific Seas. A carrier strike group in the American style just didn't fit their doctrine. There was also a clever legal reason for the cruiser designation. The Montreux Convention restricts the passage of aircraft carriers through the Turkish Straits, which connect the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, by calling their ships aviation cruisers and equipping them with heavy anti-ship missiles. The Soviets could argue they were UNT pure carriers and legally move them in and out of the Black Sea where their main shipyards were located. This compromise created a hybrid ship, a jack of all trades but a master of none. It was a cruiser that could carry planes, not a carrier built to project air power. This historical decision is the root cause of why Russia's carrier journey has been so different from America's. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia inherited the Admiral Kuznetsov, but the dream of a large carrier fleet died with it. The second ship in its class, the Varyag, was left incomplete, and eventually sold to China, where it was finished and became the Liaoning, the foundation of China's modern carrier program. Russia, meanwhile, was left with the Kuznetsov, a ship that has been plagued with problems from the very start. One of the most infamous features of the Kuznetsov is the thick, black smoke that constantly billows from its stacks. This is because it runs on a heavy, tar-like fuel oil called mazut, a notoriously inefficient and troublesome power source. Unlike nuclear-powered American carriers, the Kuznetsov has a limited range and requires a fleet of support ships just to keep it moving. Then there's the takeoff system. Instead of the powerful steam or electromagnetic catapults found on US carriers, the Kuznetsov uses a simple ski jump ramp. This ramp limits the maximum weight of the aircraft taking off, which means its Su-33 and MiG-29K fighters can't carry a full load of fuel and weapons. This severely restricts their combat range and effectiveness. In its only combat deployment off the coast of Syria in 2016, the Kuznetsov's air wing suffered multiple crashes, and many of its missions were reportedly flown from a land base in Syria instead of the ship itself. It was a performance that highlighted its limitations rather than its strength. The ship's history reads like a catalog of disasters. In 2018, the massive floating dry dock, holding it for repairs, the PD-50 suddenly sank, causing a 70-ton crane to crash onto the Kuznetsov's flight deck, punching a huge hole in it. Then, in 2019, a major fire broke out during welding work, causing extensive damage and taking the lives of 2 workers. Again, in 2022, another fire broke out. These incidents, combined with reports of widespread corruption delaying repairs and siphoning funds, have kept the ship out of service for years. There have even been unconfirmed reports that with the ship indefinitely stuck in the shipyard, parts of its experienced crew were being reassigned as naval infantry to fight in Ukraine, a sign of just how far the carrier has fallen. For a while, there was talk of a bold new future. Russia unveiled ambitious plans for a massive nuclear-powered super carrier, dubbed Project Storm. Concept art showed a behemoth capable of competing with America's finest. But this was always more of a fantasy than a reality. The estimated cost ran into the tens of billions of dollars. Money Russia simply didn't have, especially after sanctions hit its economy hard. Russia also lacks the shipyards capable of building such a massive vessel. The yard that built the Kuznetsov is now in independent Ukraine. The dream of Project Storm quietly faded away, replaced by a much more pragmatic reality. Russia's naval strategy has pivoted. Instead of trying to match the West carrier for carrier, they are investing in what are called asymmetric capabilities. They've focused on developing quiet, advanced submarines that can threaten enemy ships from the depths. They've poured resources into hypersonic missiles like the Zircon and Kinzel, which are designed to be so fast that traditional carrier defenses can't stop them. And they are investing heavily in long-range bombers and unmanned drones. The thinking is simple: why spend billions on a vulnerable floating city like an aircraft carrier when you can develop cheaper weapons that can disable or sink it from hundreds of miles away? In a way, Russia is betting that the age of the aircraft carrier, as the undisputed king of the seas, is coming to an end. In modern warfare, these massive targets are seen by some as increasingly vulnerable to new technologies. For a country with Russia's budget and strategic priorities, building more carriers simply doesn't make sense. So when you see the solitary, smoking Admiral Kuznetsov, you're not just looking at a single, troubled ship, you're seeing the end result of a unique history, a series of naval compromises, and a dramatic strategic pivot. While the US Navy projects power with its globe-spanning carrier strike groups, Russia has chosen a different path, born out of necessity and a changing view of naval warfare. The Kuznetsov isn't just Russia's only aircraft carrier, it's likely to be its last. The era of the Russian aircraft carrier began as a compromise and appears to be ending not with a bang, but with a plume of black smoke. Thanks for watching. If you found this look into naval history interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into military technology and strategy. See you next time.